Hi everyone, welcome back to my next video. This is a vlog. I'm just going to throw it up. I don't plan to edit it. It's the first day of 2018. First sunrise. I just watched the sunrise. It was very pretty here. I'm in Parker, Arizona. I'm back to my home, and it's a new year and the beginning of a new time. So I thought I would do a bit of reflection. Isn't that what we're supposed to do on New Year's Day, January 1st, to stop and say, this is what my last year was like, and this is what I hope my new year is like. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to have some thoughts for what you might consider doing for the new year. Of course, I always have those, don't I? I always have advice. So let me begin by saying that last year, 2017, was both awful and wonderful. And isn't that the way it usually works? Isn't that the way of life? That life is both awful and wonderful at the same time. And I would guess that your life has been that way, that you can look back at 2018 and think, man, there were some really wonderful times and there were some really awful times. And sometimes during the awful times we think, this is all there's been. And it's felt that way to me fairly often in 2017, and I suspect that some of you will say that. Some of you have had good years, and it's been mostly good and wonderful. And you think, wow, what a great year it was, and I'm very happy for you. And yet I'm equally happy for myself and for those of us who have had awful years. That can be a year of growth and movement, and I believe that's what those times are for. And that's what I want to talk to you about this year, right now, in this video, about how life is a mixture of these seeming opposites. I am a big fan of Taoism. That's a Chinese religion, very closely related to Zen Buddhism. And I'm not a religious person. I don't follow any religion. But the closest I come to following a religion is Taoism. If I were going to follow one, that's what I would. I can't abide the details of religion. I like the ideas and the principles, because at their core you can find those in all of them. It's very similar. And so I like to find the core principles. And there are core principles in Taoism that I just grab my heart and I love. And one of the primary core principles of Taoism is the very idea of Yin and Yang, that life is composed of opposites. And when you look at nature, you just stop and you look at the world around us with any kind of an open eye. I think what you're going to see is a world of opposites, a world that is composed of extreme opposites. Let me give you some examples. In the world, you'll find pain and pleasure. And when you look back, and I look back at 2017, I believe we're going to see, we'll see a lot of pain and pleasure in our year. Physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, and all of those kinds of pleasure. And they kind of wrap around each other. And one day can be a tremendous pleasure, and the next can be a horrible pain. And so you see those things in all our world. Day and night. I mean, what could be the more perfect example that the world is composed of opposites than day and night? Half of the year is day, darkness, and half of the year is light, depending on where you are. But it balances itself out over the course of the year. It's half darkness and half light. It's an constant, never ceasing reality, and you see it in everything in nature. There's heat and cold. I mean, wherever you are, unless you're in at the equator, there's always this constant flow of heat, hot to cold, day to night. And the further north you go, the more extreme it is, of course. But it's just a given, and your physical body will be alternating kind of all the time between hot and cold. And mine does too. Wearing a coat. It was cold, pretty cold last night. The desert gets cold in January, And so I woke up this morning, was cold, and put a coat on. Now I'm standing in the sun. As you can see, I'm squinting and trying to see. And now I'm hot. so I'm experiencing heat and cold within hours of each other right now. And my guess is you have experienced them both this year as well. It's just part of life, heat and cold. And there's male and female, and oh my goodness, aren't we all too well aware of male and female and the differences between male and female? It's in every creature that we know, and it's so readily apparent in ourselves, and we are so intently aware of male and female and the differences, sometimes the enormous differences between male and female. And so another example is right and wrong, and we have such varying and profound ideas about right and wrong. And sometimes those are the most destructive forces in our lives. In my life, I can speak for myself, that the concept of right and wrong is terribly destructive in my life sometimes. And my insistence on being right and proving you wrong has been one of the most destructive things in my life. And so while we all embrace right, sometimes the right is destructive if we allow it to be. It doesn't have to be, it should not be. And sometimes the wrong can be just as right as right. So, but those are clearly two opposites. Birth and death, they seem so far apart, or hopefully they seem very far apart, but maybe they're not. In a lot of instances, my first wife had a miscarriage, and birth and death came together, and that was a hardship. But birth and death are opposites, and young and old. And I was young, and now I'm old. And maybe you're young, but you will hopefully be old. And you may be old and feel old and be really, really old, but you were once young, and that's still part of you. So life is composed of opposites. There's just no other way to look at it. Our lives are completely composed of opposites. It's how we deal with those opposites that determine the quality of our lives. That's just the single most important thing. And in the West, we treat the opposites as enemies, as opponents, to be fought and wrestled and defeated and destroyed. So we oppose wrong. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and we are going to destroy wrong. And male and female, in our civilization, in our culture, the male is right and strong, and the female is generally wrong and weak. And of course, that's entirely wrong. So we live in this oppositional attitude between the opposites. And I have found that to be horribly destructive in my life. And there are many of you are out there right now drawing lines in the sand and saying, no, I will never go along with that. Right is right and wrong is wrong, and day is night and black and white. It's just all very crystal clear to me, no matter what you say. And that's okay, you can think that way. But the Taoists think very differently from that. They think in terms of life as a dance between opposites. And the opposites of life are co-creators. And that as they dance, they merge and mold, and one becomes the other. And you see that in nearly every example that I've given. Male and female is an example. As we get older, psychologists will tell you that a lot of people experience shifts. As a male testosterone diminishes and male testosterone diminishes, the estrogen takes over a dominant part. And so many men, as they age, become more feminine in their ways. They don't become women, of course, but they become softer and gentler. And I have experienced that for myself. And women, as their estrogen decreases and their testosterone becomes more predominant, become stronger as they age. It's not universal, it's not always, but it's common. So there is a flowing and a blending, and of course young blends into old, and pain blends into pleasure. What woman hasn't given birth in childbirth felt the unbelievable pain that no man can experience, and the equally unbelievable pleasure of creation of life and that new life that came from you. And so pain and pleasure dance in that way. And I believe in our lives in nearly every way. Pain and pleasure dance together, and yin and yang are not opposites. Right and wrong, good and evil are not opposites. And the urge to love one and hate the other, and to fight and destroy the opposites, is one of the most destructive things in our lives. And the same with this pain and pleasure that you and I are going to experience this coming year. The pain and the pleasure we experienced last year. If we would embrace those pains as much as you can at the moment, pain is pain, and pain is hard to embrace at any moment, I think life would be so much better for us and so much better for me. And it's something I have endeavored to do, is to embrace pain in my life. Because you have to. What are you going to do? If your life is full of pain, and everybody's life is full of pain sometimes, then you have to embrace it. So this last year was both awful and wonderful. I had some really awful times. I had some amazing moments. I spent a lot of time in Colorado mid-year, and I loved that. And I had some experiences in driving around Colorado that were wonderful. And I made friends, and the YouTube channel was wonderful and grew and expanded, and that was just amazing. And my mom got ill, and I was trapped in her house in Florida for a big, big chunk of the year. And that was horrible beyond my description to you. So there was pleasure and pain in my life this year, and there will be again next. My mom's illness continues. It's a long, slow thing. For however long, I don't know. So there will be a lot of pain this next year. There's a lot of pleasure going to come out of it. My mom has moved to Oregon to live with my sister, and that's going to mean spending time with her will be better and easier. I'll probably spend much of the summer in Oregon near my mom, and be able to go and visit with her often and not have all the pain of living in horrible Florida and the horrible heat and a horrible house. I just cannot abide living in a house in the least little bit. So that's a very good thing that will happen this year, and it's a very bad thing that's going to happen this year, as my mom is going to slowly deteriorate, and she's going to slowly die in front of me, and she's going to slowly disappear in front of me. So there will be an immense amount of pleasure and pain for me this coming year. I hope to impact more lives. The RTR is coming up. That was another pain in my life, both the joy of the RTR and the YouTube channel and impacting lives and changing lives and hearing from you people about how I've helped you and changed your life. I can't tell you the joy and pleasure I get out of that. But there is also the pain of the huge amount of work that the RTR has become. The BLM is requiring a permit. I'm dealing with them on a regular basis, and a friend of mine, Jude, has taken over that. Thank you so much, Jude. The RTR probably wouldn't happen without Jude, because I just can't deal and cope with the pain of dealing with the bureaucracy and the minutia and the details, and that's just non-stop now with the RTR, and yet Jude is my buffer and barrier and has taken all of that off me. Thank you so much, Jude. And everyone, when we get to the RTR, you're going to owe mostly the whole thing to Jude. So thank you, Jude. And you'll be hearing and seeing more of Jude at the RTR if you come. Well, at any rate, the channel has been a huge source of pleasure and pain for me. It's a lot of work. It's nonstop work. So it's pleasure and pain and opposites dancing one another. So when I think about my last year, and I think about the year to come, and I think about you and my advice for you, and what would I suggest for you, a resolution, I think of the dance, and I think to embrace the dance. And when pain is there, dance with it. And when it rains and the storm is on and life is horrible, dance. Just embrace it. Just go with it, knowing that it's going to be their lovers. And that's the Taoist view of Yin and Yang, that they are lovers who are in the act of co-creation, and that the pain and the pleasure and the right and the wrong and the good and the evil and the day and the night and the darkness and the light and the male and the female, that while they butt heads and are seemingly at such odds, they are not. They are co-creating and blending and merging and dancing. And that if you will embrace them both and make them your greatest joys in life, that together you can dance and be a co-creator with them of joy and wonder and amazement. And the one thing in the world that makes me think of that is the Leanne Womack song, I Hope You Dance. And I watched it just before, I watched it on YouTube. You type in Leanne Womack, I Hope You Dance, and it'll come right up. There'll be different versions of it. And I watched it before I did this video, and I cried the whole way through. I love that song so much. So what I'm going to try and do this year is embrace the dance, embrace the pain and the pleasure, because you know what? There's going to be a lot of them this year. This is going to be one of the most horrible years of my life, and it's going to be one of the most wonderful years of my life. And I can either fight them and hate them and curse them, or I can embrace them and dance with them. It's my choice. It's your choice. Some of you are going through the most wonderful times of your lives, and some of you are going through the most horrible times of your life. And some of you are being forced into a car and a van, and so you're looking at some really awful, horrible times. I'm hoping that they can morph and you will dance with them. And that if you get into a car and a van and if you become part of the tribe, that it will be the most wonderful time of your life. That's what I'm hoping for you. So what I'm going to try and do this year is the first of every month, I'm going to take some time, or to thereabouts, pretty close. I'm not one who can keep, I can't say I'm going to do this on a regular schedule for the rest of my life. I can't do it. I won't do it. But I'm hoping that pretty close, once a month, I will sit down and quietly ponder my life and embrace the yin and the yang and the dance and the pleasure and the pain. And another big one that I forgot to mention and was on the top of my mind was chaos and order. We insist that life has to be orderly, and if it's not, then God hates us and is punishing us. Lies, not true. Life is equally composed of chaos and order. And there will be chaos in your life. And if there's not, it's very strange. And I would be actually more concerned about the lack of chaos if there was none. There must be the dance, or there's no creation. There's no movement. There must be the dance of the chaos and the order. And there will be chaos in your life. There's been a lot of chaos in my life. But there will be order, and the order and the chaos will dance together. So this year, I am recommending that you take once a month and you find it on YouTube, or you obviously watch YouTube, you're watching this video, that you find her song and that you ponder it and that you give faith a fighting chance. And when you're given the choice to set it out and feel the pain and roll in the pain and roll in the chaos and hate them and fight them, or to give up, I hope you'll dance. I hope you'll just embrace the fuck out of that pain and find a dance in it and find the joy in it, because it's in there. It's in there. They're co-creators. They're lovers. They're so intertwined and so merged with each other. They cannot be separated. And that one is now, this moment, strongest and dominant and very painful, or very chaotic and seemingly very horrible. The lover is in there with her, and it will be pleasure again, and the dance will go on, and something wonderful, new life will come out of it, and new joy and new pleasure. And that's my hope for you, that you will dance and that you will give faith a fighting chance. So, if you would do that thing for me, if you will sit down and open your heart, break your heart, allow all the pain and the darkness and the wrong and the chaos to break your heart wide open. Break it wide open in a horrible, horrible way. And then if you will sit down and listen to that song and you will weep and you will cry, and you will dance. And if you would do that for me once, as often as you can, I would be a happy man. And I can, at this next time, at this year, next year at this time, I can look back and say, boy, this was the best year of my life and the worst year of my life. I danced, and I got a few other people out on the floor dancing with me. I hope that for you, and I hope that for myself. Let's dance, friends. Let's dance. All right, that's it. I'm going to upload this thing, as horrible as it is, just the way it is, and I will talk to you later.